Is that where that's from? It's just incredible.
But I don't think we should put stuff in front of the casket.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Wait, Nate's this one. I feel like this is the most like here.
No, that's cool.
Does that work?
Yeah.
And we may not have room for it. Maybe we should. I'm interesting. Did you find? That's kind of fabulous. I know.
Did you see this?
Maybe we'll put these in the front then. This is but let's just put this in the front. Wait, Mark, I'm sorry. I think you're. We should keep them back.
Thank you. I'm gonna. Well, I'll just pick one. I don't know if anybody else wants one of these.
Or should we do this on this side?
Yes.
I know you guys think. That's pretty good.
Really?
And then put this in the front. We'll put this in the front. You like that one better? And then this in the front.
Yeah, that one was the super elegant one. I kind of like the two sides.
Yeah, great. Right, put this perfect.
Thank you.
That was all I had. I just believe the boss want to go to the gym.
Like wearing your colors.
What? you
You
do.
know.
That's kind of crazy.
I didn't realize you looked like.
For us.
Yeah.
Gizalia has this
Yeah, Gedalia looks.
no, literally. Limbs out. Like, so.
Ripped out.
Wait. That's what I'm saying. I guess so. If someone just archaeological dig a little. A little. I did like.
Oh yeah.
You're way in charge of that.
Oh, it's so whatever you want. First thing
Just if everyone comes up to you, pretend like you're in your own.
Just wait 1 second. Oh, what now? What? I don't know why you're having like a. That was awful. You just did the like math stuff. You're not like. That was so bad.
that was the craziest suggestion. If someone comes up and asks for something,
But also, he wasn't joking. He was like, 1 minute, let me show you what he's doing.
If someone comes up, you don't want to talk, be like,
Sir, you're angry.
yeah, Jacob, where the fuck is
Oh,
hello?
acting in high
I
school.
think they're all higher.
Yeah.
Like,
This, and then the burial, and then the
yeah, I guess it's a reason. It's always been kind of just back in the
I realized this in the course of the first year.
yeah,
How it's like,
yeah, I think it's worth it. Skip the
so you don't have to take the regular
I mean,
That's okay, that chair?
If I was looking for a higher one, I can make that work, but if there's anything higher,
yeah.
that'd be great.
the academic. The academic
Yeah.
pretty
You also need to.
after music school.
Oh.
It's your whole life.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be sick.
He's probably going to want to do Kriya in the front room. How are you, Rabbi? Good, thank God. I'm not going to turn this on until we start.
Hello, are we on? Now it's on? everybody? Still no.
Okay, we're gonna
Yeah, it's on. Test, test. Just got.
Gotta give it a little bit of.
This one is for the live stream, and this is for him. So we are hot.
Okay.
Hot mic.
Hot mic. So it shouldn't make any difference.
No turn. I got that happen. You'll give me that back, right?
Yeah.
Very hard to come by.
Okay. I have 10 of them. I collect them. All right, everybody. I promised that we would start more or less on time. It's only 1:03. It's not too bad. I want to invite everybody. First of all, if you could just take a moment to remember to turn off your phones. Turn off the ringers on your phones. Thank you, everybody, for coming today for the sad duty of saying goodbye to Amy Cohen. Ahuva bat Shimon v'Helen. You knew her as a mother and a grandmother and a friend and an aunt and a neighbor. She leaves behind a large family, 6 children, 16 grandchildren, Tom and Lisa, Helen and Mark, Dan and Mara, Gail and Jonathan, David and Jody, Carolyn and Ruby, many grandchildren, Michaela, Hannah, Raphael, Anna, Sam, Ethan, Sasha, Emmanuel, Michal, Gedalia, Nava, Jacob, Carly, Leah, and Talia. That's a list. You knew her as a person who was athletic and beautiful and graceful. You can see these photos, these extraordinary photos, around the room, and in the other room you can see a person in different phases of her life. I always find it incredibly valuable to think of the different phases of somebody's life, thinking of them as young, thinking of them as old, thinking of them as children, in the full flowering of their own adult life, as a young mom, as an older grandmother. I stand in front of these rooms, and there's always a box in the front of the room, and in the box is a person. And the box always seems so small, and the person is much bigger than can be contained in the box. The life is big, and it's part of the pain of being in a funeral is recognizing the disjunction, the gap between the big life and the small box. So I invite you to think about her in the fullness of her life, with everything that she loved, all of her strengths, and because she was a human being, all of her weaknesses. We all have them. And that's what our sad job to do is, our sad job at a funeral is to do those things, is to summon up the memories of the person in their fullness, the times of their joy, the times of their loss, the times of their heartbreak, because everybody has all of those things. Everybody has joy, and everybody has sorrow, everybody has magic to their life, and everybody has something tragic to their life. And so we're going to summon up those memories as we think about Amy today. Amy was a lover of music. I think that's probably well known. I'm almost certain that I knew her least of anyone in this room, but I think it is well known that she was a passionate lover of music, and she asked for certain music to be played at her funeral. So I don't know exactly which piece you're going to do now. This is, I think, Jerry, and you're going to play the cello, obviously. He's going to do something now at the beginning and something at the end, and at least one of those is something she specifically requested be played at her funeral. Oh, that's modified? Specifically in general suggested that something should be played. Please.
Well, because
I was just going to say that I'm going to play some solo Bach, because that's pretty much all there is for solo cello that's worth playing at an occasion like this. And it's pretty familiar music to many of you, I'm sure.
You. Obviously, music opens up things in your heart. Music is a language that transcends any given, semantic language. And there's an element to Jewish funerals that similarly tries to get at what is beyond words. As music gets beyond words, we have a gesture that tries to get beyond words. We rip our clothing. Our life is left, if we're lucky, life is a weave and a fabric of things which come together. And when somebody leaves us, the fabric of life also is ripped. And we try to express a little bit, in the wordless way that we do in ripping our clothing, we try to express a little bit of what is beyond words in that feeling of loss. So I'm going to invite the four of Amy's children who are here. A couple of them couldn't be here, and any grandchildren who wish to rise, and we'll say a blessing, because in this religion we don't only say blessings when we get what we want, when things are the way we would like them to be. We also have blessings, a moment of resignation and acceptance when things are not as we would like them to be. And so we'll say a bracha, and then you will rip the garment, the little symbolic ribbons that you have, and Dan will also, I'll help you cut your shirt. And when you are with people in Shiva, I ask you to wear those, and people will see in the tatter, in the clothing, a little bit of the tatter in the heart. So if I can ask you all to rise. And we'll say the regular blessing formula, Baruch Atah,
Baruch atah, Adonai Eloheinu,
Melech HaOlam,
melech haolam,
Dayan HaEmet.
dayan ha'emet.
And the rest of us say Amen.
Amen.
It's blessed, wait, stay standing. Don't sit down yet. The blessing is, blessed is God who is the true judge. This is a judgment. Mortality is a judgment which is universal. We cannot change it, and we don't always want to accept it, but we have to accept it. So if the three of you would rip the ribbon up about halfway, and Dan, I'll help you with the...
Yeah, don't go by half measures.
There's a statement in the Talmud that I find particularly meaningful. It says, "Kol hamorid d'maot al adam kasher," whoever sheds tears at the loss of a good person. Hakadosh Baruch Hu sofran u'menichan beveit ginzav. God gathers up each of those tears and puts them in God's bank vault. The true cosmic bank vault is not filled with silver and gold. The cosmic bank vault is filled with the tears that we share in love. And it quotes a verse, a great verse from Psalm 56, Nodi Safata, God, you counted up all the steps on my long journey through life. Ata sima dimati binodecha, place each of my tears in your bottle. Halo b'sifratecha, inscribe them in your book. So what we do at a funeral, as I said before, is we try to evoke that person in his or her fullness. We try to evoke the person, the different stages of their lives, the memories that we have of them. You told me on the phone the other day that that with her passing, just you had a flood of sweet memories that came back to you. So what I'm going to do is invite Amy's children and a cousin and some grandchildren to share words in memory of Amy. We're going to begin with Helen.
Well, there's no place to put anything.
Yeah, just here a little bit, but if you want, I can.
That's all right. Are you gonna sit?
I was, but you can.
It's okay. Go ahead.
Okay.
Just give me a minute. Collect myself. It's nice to look out and see you all here. So the rabbi reminded us that we only give at most 2 eulogies for parents' lives, and urged us to write ours down, which was very, very good advice, because honestly I could sort of lose it here. Much to my mother's chagrin, I've lived in San Francisco for the past 37 years, coming to New York for visits and enjoying a steady routine of her visits to California. Despite the distance, we stayed close through thick and thin over the decades, with endless phone calls, usually her calling me around 1:30 in the morning, her time, hoping that I would still be up at 10:30 p.m. mine. Landing at JFK on Tuesday in New York for the first time with my mother no longer here to greet me is a profound shock to my system. She was just a constant. Her life and our visits during the last couple of years became so diminished as her body and spirit were really taxed. And there's a strange kind of relief, as the rabbi referenced, and sort of gratitude in coming here with all of you today to honor the totality of her life, to be conjuring my own memories of my beautiful, exuberant mother in her more vibrant days, and to be receiving messages from so many people whose lives she touched. Phrases like larger than life, one of a kind, broke the mold, force of nature, a font of emotional support, a shining star, and adjectives I'm sure you'll hear repeated today. Gracious, gorgeous, generous, alive, radiant, compassionate, funny. Many people said they loved her great laugh, and I have a trove of messages saved on my phone that I will cherish. They usually start with "Halsey Dolan" or something like that, with that special Amy accent. My mother was really someone who shared her love widely. As her daughter, I can also assure you that she was insecure and maddening at times, with all the emotional layers that come with a long and complicated life. I'm sure that vulnerability is also part of what made her so compassionate, so interested in other people's lives and loves and struggles. I know I move in the world with a certain confidence and sense of possibility because of the absolute love and admiration I felt from her throughout my life. She believed I could do anything. Among all the qualities I admired most about her and think I've tried to emulate was her genuine interest in and love of people. She cared deeply and had an amazing ability to connect with and talk deeply in personal ways. My husband, Mark, whom she adored, was blown away early in our relationship when he found himself confiding in and communing with his future and mother-in-law about their recent divorces and difficult fathers and complicated childhoods. That was Amy. My daughter Anna loved her Oma and felt supported by her always. So many of my friends, a couple of whom are here today, Robert Schwartz and Matlub from San Francisco, so many of my friends were just deeply impacted by her. Some of you may remember a story I told at her 90th birthday about my first grade boyfriend, Timmy Falco, who loved coming for play dates and hanging out at our house. Timmy found me through the Mamaroneck High School directory about 35 years after our first grade relationship, and called to say hi, but mostly he called to tell me how often he thought of my mom and the generosity she extended to him. And I've heard a version of that story so many times. Elizabeth Wolf, who is here today, moved in with my family in 11th grade. My mom and dad, who barely knew her at the time, just said sure. She needed a home and a family to take her in. In addition to this generosity of spirit, I got to grow up with the cool mom, the one who was sporty and fun and drove us all around, and drove us all of our friends around, sitting up on the back and sometimes on the hood of her famous convertible down Hummocks Road, hitting the brakes to bump us off our seats for laughs. You can picture it, right? With her bandana, with her kerchief, her head. She threw a mean football and swam in the ocean and Long Island Sound and ponds of Martha's Vineyard, and immediately removed her wet bathing suit, no matter where she was or who was around. I do all of those things too. I loved her love of nature and passionate love of music. In recent years, we shared a lot about politics and contributed to campaigns and causes together. All the outrage and passion and commitments to her liberal views on proud display. Even when some of her conversations were getting a little incoherent, get her going on politics, and she was utterly lucid. She was a force of nature and a shining star. To say I will miss her is a huge understatement. May she rest in peace next to her beloved Bud. and may the blessed memories of her life continue to nurture us all. And I'm going to attempt to share one of my voicemails from my mom. I have many dozens of these and didn't have time to go through them, but the one I'm going to share seems poignant for today. It was right after I had come back to New York from San Francisco to attend the funeral of her beloved Mary Rose Mercier, who many of you knew and who my mother loved dearly. So let me see if this will work.
Hey, Mom, it's me.
Oops, that's a message from Anna.
I'm just hanging out.
Hold on a second. Ah.
I'll talk to you later. All right, bye.
All right, let's try this again.
How's it going?
No, it's not going to work.
It's on speaker.
It is on speaker. Shoot.
Thank you.
I meant to test this out.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. Wait, let me try that again. I should have tested this. I'm a producer. I know that I should have done a sound check, but here we go.
It's on, but it's not that loud. Just hold it right up to the.
All right. I'm taking one last try, and otherwise I'll give you all your own little version of it. No.
Is it playing?
I thought it was.
The
Well, you
mic-
could
the
hear
mic is
me.
on.
Well, it starts with Halsey Darlin. And it ends with her, a very sweet moment where she thanked me so much for coming and said, even though it was a sad visit, it was just a beautiful time together, and that's life. We move on, we keep loving, and that's what I'm gonna cherish, and I'm happy to try it again.
Try
at
again
another-
privately, yeah.
At another
Yeah.
point. Thanks.
That's what I'm
Thank
afraid
you.
to finish your
I
water.
want my water.
So I hope in individual moments you get to do that again and to play that for people. There's another rabbinic statement that the silence of standing in a cemetery is the essence of a funeral, the silence of it. And what I think that means is that you listen for a voice that you don't get to hear anymore. The voice that you love, that was so part of your life, is absent. And so I often try to tell people that they should summon in their memory something that their loved one said. Thank heavens for technology, because you'll actually get to hear that voice for as long as you keep that phone. At least you'll get to hear that voice in your life. Dan is going to be our next speaker.
Yeah, it's probably just as well, because I probably would have burst into tears if I heard that. All right, thank you so much, everybody, for coming. Today is a sad day. But although it's a sad day, my mother always liked a good party. And I'm sure she would have wanted this event to be a celebration and not a funeral. So she was always a fan of a good joke. She liked to be comfortable herself and to put people at their ease. As Helen said, she could talk to anyone and loved doing so. And it's wonderful to hear from all the people in this room and all the people that I've gotten calls from and have heard about over the last few days that she touched with her love and generosity of spirit. She had quite the fan club, it turns out, even at her advanced age. Um, in the last few years, wheelchair bound and her eyesight weak and her hearing failing, she wasn't able to do much. The highlight of her week were her dinners with us, her children, mostly me, my sisters Gail and Carolyn, and our spouses. And those were pleasant meals at Lusardi's in Larchmont or at Beach Point Club. But her legendary sense of humor was in abeyance, and her once razor-sharp mind now couldn't recall what she'd watched on TV that very day. We would discuss amongst ourselves afterward, the family and I, how frustrating it was, how hard to watch. But I realized in the last few days that there was something else, something more going on. She was happy enough to be in our presence, no matter if she could understand everything we were saying or not. The fellowship that she so cherished was not just with her, but with each other. It pleased her immensely to see us talking together, just seeing it. Understanding didn't really matter. Seeing us talking meant she'd done her job. She'd passed something on. Le Dorvador. We thought we were doing it for her, but it turns out she was doing it for us, and it worked. By visiting with her, we became closer to each other. This was her last gift to us, her last little joke. Thanks, Mom.
Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And nobody should be embarrassed about crying at a funeral. I think it's your children who speak next, Sam and Sasha?
Yeah.
I haven't been crying much. This is kind of crazy, but thank you all for being here. What? Sorry. Is this better? Okay. Thank you all for being here today to celebrate the life of Amy Cohen, my grandmother, my Oma. I'm Sasha. I'm the daughter of Dan and Mara, one of many, many grandchildren, but I want to say for the record that I don't think she ever made us feel like one of many. I think we all felt like we had our own special kind of relationship with her and felt seen and loved and valued by her in a different way. It wasn't like, 17 it could be, but so I think along with all the sadness and loss and heartache that I've been feeling a lot over the past few days, I've also been feeling a lot of gratitude. I'm very, very deeply grateful to have had Amy Cohen as my grandmother. She was incomparable. And so I'll tell you about some of the reasons that I'm grateful for her. She used to come over when we were children and for Monday Night Football. And there was this segment called Jacked Up where they would replay scenes of people getting just absolutely pummeled. And me and my brothers would get really excited and rowdy. And instead of telling us to quiet down and settle down, she would kind of join in with us. She loved Jerry Rice. Not that Jerry Rice was playing when we were watching, but anyways, she always told me when something looked bad on me or if it was ugly when we went shopping. I got to go skiing with my grandmother, which I don't think a lot of people can say. My grandmother inspired me to rock climb, which I also don't think a lot of people can say. She grew up with 2 older brothers, which made me feel really badass because she made it seem like we were in it together and we shared that. And she just showed me that you can be so many things all at once. She was glamorous and gritty, which is just a rare and very cool combination. She used to keep her beautiful fine jewelry in shower caps. So you can afford a box. You can get a jewelry box if you want to. She passed on to me a love of beautiful things and beautiful music and beautiful people.
And I'm just very grateful to have had a grandmother that never made me feel anything less than loved and supported and valuable and important. But I think, sort of in the vein of what my dad was saying, the most important gift that she gave me all, and all of us perhaps, was each other. I feel so sure that I have the best family in the world. And partly it's because we just rock and have, like, you know, we were born with it, I guess. But I think also she invested a lot of time and energy in making sure that we spent time together. She brought us on vacation to the beach and to the mountains, to the vineyard, to Aspen. She was just constantly finding ways for the cousins and the siblings to be together with her. And it's just, it's impossible for me to imagine who I would be without this big, loud, annoying, colorful, complicated, and beautiful family. And I'm very, very grateful to have a family that I want to spend time with. So thank you, Oma, for giving that to all of us and for showing me how to walk through the world with elegance and zest, and for teaching me what it means to see everything as marvelous, or marvelous.
So I just wanted to say something real quick about the Queen Bee, Oma Amy. She loved the finer things in life. This is just the way I remember her. She loved the finest things in life. And when I was a kid growing up and we would visit her in Larchmont, she had this white wooden horse that was kind of like just balancing on this little piece of wood. I don't know how much it costs. It's probably some piece of fine art from some far off land. And I remember my mom would tell me not to touch it. And then Oma would literally pick me up and place me on it, and I would pretend like I was riding on it. So I just want to say she was a woman who loved the finer things, but knew how to have fun with them as well. And that's how I remember her. Thank you. And she hated Bill Parcells and loved Jerry Rice. And whenever we watched football, she hated if the Cowboys were playing. Thank you.
And Peyton Manning.
Peyton Manning, she was probably neutral about.
All right, a football fan on top of her other great assets.
You would have loved
Gail will be our next speaker.
This is when I know it's hard to be the fourth child. Gotta follow the hardest acts. Thank you all so much for being here. Really grateful for each and every one of you. And it's not often that this exact group gets together, so thank you for making this special moment happen. We couldn't do it without all of you. I could tell you many remarkable and quirky things about my mother, like her adoration of all things chocolate, her love of rock climbing and knitting, not an everyday combination of interests, her inability to order French fries without saying, "Very crisp, please." Very, very crisp. Her love of round tables, Scrabble, tennis, and skiing, her loathing of motorcycles and loud motorboats, her incisive political critiques on almost any and every day. She was a news junkie her whole life and diehard Democrat. Her disinterest in any kind of makeup except lipstick on occasion, her inner and outer tomboy nature. I think her first mani-pedi was in her late 80s. And on and on. But when it comes down to it, these funny details about Amy Cohen do not capture her deeper, more endearing qualities. We know, and often forget, that our true legacy, for all of us, lies in how we make other people feel in our presence. And Mom, in so many ways, you win in this department. I know that many people sitting here today, and many who could not make it, would tell you in private that you saved their lives and picked them up when they were in a dark place, listened to them, supported them, made them feel seen, to use today's lingo. And Mom, if that were all you did in this world, Dayenu, that would truly be enough. But there is more. Mom left countless messages on my answering machine. quelling and gushing in her inimitable way, that's already been mentioned, about her grandchildren. Emmanuel just called me to check in. What a lovely boy. I bet you didn't even tell him to do that. Amazing. And that Michal, how did she know that I needed company in your room the other night? She just sensed it. What a remarkable girl. When Gedalia wrote an article for his high school paper, my mother insisted on reading it and called me the next day to say, this boy should be a journalist. I mean, the way he puts words together, I've never seen anything like it. And my mother's support and love for Nava only grew when she faced some challenges as a teenager. Mom used to tell Nava that she was the bravest and strongest girl she had ever had the pleasure to know, that she was so proud of her, and that she knew way more about people in life than most adults ever will. And with Jacob, she often talked all things sports with him. They would compare notes on players and review the latest sports news, and when he departed the room, she would sigh with delight and say, remarkable young man. How did you do that? That's Mom's classic double compliment. She also enjoyed every last note of any piano piece that Jacob and Nava had learned, or half learned, or were just starting to learn. This list would not be complete without mentioning the dozens of performances that my mother attended at the Riverdale Y to attend her grandchildren's performances, even when they had itty-bitty parts. That was Mom, an overall positive spirit with such an abiding and great love of music, dance, and performance. What a blessing for them and me to have had this kind of positive force backing us unconditionally and for so long. I realized just now, while putting together this eulogy, that one thing that my mother taught me is that our outlook actually shapes reality, and not the other way around. When you choose to see things a certain way, it actually changes how things are. Life doesn't just happen to us. We have more agency than we think, especially when it comes to how we choose to interpret and see the world. It's a cultivated skill to see the good in everyone, and Mom's lasting legacy is that she really had a knack for this. How else can one explain that so many shopkeepers and waiters knew her by name, and vice versa, in so many places? People's faces would light up when Amy was coming. She brought the fun, the good times, and the laughs. My favorite recent example of her openness to all people is that Mom was recently invited and attended an opera with Jerry, her Larchmont hairdresser, who styled her hair regularly for close to 70 years. I hope that he's here with us today. Please come up and say hello if you're out there. Mom, your generosity of spirit and strong character were exemplary and not something that we can take for granted. Many people do not show up in the world this way. This kind of love and support cannot be measured or replaced. We love you and will miss you so much.
Carolyn, it's your turn.
Yeah, try being number 6. Oh, it's amazing seeing all the faces. Thank you all so much for being here. I'm Carolyn, the 6th child of Amy. As I got up this morning to dress for the somber event, a little voice in my head said, "You need to wear a black dress." But then a different voice, a loud, cheerful voice with a deep New York accent chimed in. "Black? Are you crazy? You know I hate the color black." And this was the voice of my beloved mother, Amy Cohen. My mother did hate the color black. She also hated funerals, hospitals, bedside visits, and all things having to do with sickness, death, and misery. Miraculously, and for this I am grateful, she managed to avoid each and every one of these things in her own passing. The thought of my mother sitting in her favorite armchair, listening to Don Giovanni, her favorite opera, and passing peacefully into the next world fills me with comfort and a weird sense of pride. She lived life on her own terms to the very end, always with style, grace, beauty, and a contagious joie de vivre. My mother truly savored life and all of its wonderful gifts. She loved to travel. She skied until the age of 80, rock climbed until the age of 70, and quit only when her friend and climbing guide, Billy Lacalio, who is with us today, decided that he was too old to be climbing rocks at the young age of 50. She loved classical music with a passion that she shared with my father, the love of her life and soulmate to whom she was married for 41 years. One of my favorite stories is when she and my father went to a concert and discovered that it was the same program that they had listened to the night before. In a typical manner, they exclaimed that the only thing better than hearing this program once was hearing it twice, and they decided to stay. As they were exiting the concert hall, they saw a familiar face, an elderly woman who sat in the same seat the night before. They struck up a conversation and asked the woman if she liked the concert so much that she too decided to come twice, to which she responded, "Yes, but I have a good excuse. The pianist is my son. What is your excuse?" She also loved the theater and festive, cheerful pre-theater dining. The minimum number for theater tickets and restaurant reservations was 10, and often 12, 14, and 17, because there was nothing she loved more than sharing her pleasure and passion with friends and family. Just yesterday, I received the most beautiful note from a close childhood friend of Ruby's from Jerusalem, who recounted the time when my mother invited him to join us during his visit to New York to see Al Pacino play in The Merchant of Venice, an experience that he will never forget. This is so my mother. Everyone was invited to the great party that was Amy Cohen. This open-armed, embracing generosity was perhaps the most defining quality of my mother. From a very young age, I remember our home being wide open. Guests and friends of guests would stream in and out of the warm, lit, welcoming space filled with laughter and conversation. Everyone was drawn to my mother's bright glow, her startling beauty, her charisma, and her unique ability to connect and listen to people, especially the young. So many of my friends and my siblings' friends formed a strong, intimate bond with her over the years. My college friend Neil, for example, who first came to our house for Seder in 1989 and loved it so much that I think he came for a decade after, wrote me a beautiful note yesterday reminding me of the time my mother attended the Brown University Chorus concert at Carnegie Hall and beamed with pride in the audience as if she was his own mother. But my mother was not just a party girl. She was a fanatic news junkie, a diehard Democrat, and an inspiring liberal who was truly committed to progressive values and passing them on to her children. She taught us the importance of taking responsibility for the world we grew up in and encouraged us to find ways to give back to our community. She relished the stories I would share with her about my work in public education and took personal interest in the incredible accomplishments of my students, many of whom came from low-income backgrounds. But perhaps most of all, my mother's greatest gift to me was the genuine love that flowed between us, my husband Ruby and my daughters Leah and Talia. She formed a unique bond with each of us, a secret language of love that often went beyond words. The first time I brought Ruby to dinner with her, they delved into a long martini-fueled conversation, and I, who had woken up early that day, was yawning and tugging at Ruby's sleeve, saying, "Don't worry, we'll see her again soon." When my daughters were born, their first stop from the hospital was not our apartment in the city. It was my mother's welcoming cottage in Larchmont, where we were joined by Ruby's parents and spent some of the sweetest, most magical days together with my mother. As my daughters grew up, they looked forward to what they called secret play dates with their Oma, who would pick them up from school, take them to a cafe, gorge them with chocolate cake, and listen intently to their stories about their days at school. For years to follow, there were so many wonderful dinners, vacations, shopping trips, holidays, and so many memorable moments that we somehow always knew to savor and never take for granted. As I stood in front of the mirror this morning in my non-black dress, preparing for this moment, I looked for glimmers of her in me. We do not look alike, and yet I feel her presence bubbling inside me. Her little quirks, her unique style, her love of friends, family, and dark chocolate. I savor each and every small resemblance, be it real or imagined, and I hope that her presence will continue to grow inside of me and remain a part of who I am forever.
Okay, Leah and Talia will come next.
Okay, so I wrote her kind of a letter rather than like an eulogy. I'm Leah Namdar Cohen. I'm her granddaughter. I'm Carolyn's daughter. To my dearest Oma shirt, I must confess that of all the letters we have exchanged in my life, this one is the first one that has filled me with dread. You have been my pen pal through countless summer camps and programs. You've been my personal diary, and I've been a time capsule of your stories and advice and love. I wish for nothing more than one last moment of excitement in my bunk bed as I open a doting letter from you, penned as though it was written in a hurricane and filled with boy advice, friendship advice, fashion advice, poetry, and sweetness. Okay. I wish to run up to you outside of Lusardi's and to compliment your outfit and share a martini and exchange our stories. Ever since I was young, I knew deeply that I could trust you. At the age of 2, I would lay on the couch as you leaned over me, placing your dazzling gold necklace in my mouth and pulling me up as I bit down on it with glee. You always knew just how to pick me up when I was down and how to do it in style. When I was in elementary school, I remember feeling upset and demanding that my mother call you so you could give me advice instead of her. You've always understood me and cared about me in a way that felt out of the ordinary. You loved me and knew how to make it feel all right. You were my glamorous elderly partner. I knew you could be skiing or golfing or socializing, but there you sat beside me in white leather loafers with your hands on my knees, leaving bright lipstick marks on my cheeks that I hoped would never fade away. You always loved my knees and would comment on their resemblance to yours. I loved hearing that, Oma. I hoped to look and act exactly like you and would walk around in giant sunglasses, strutting my legs as you once did and calling everything marvelous. Being your granddaughter gave me confidence and pride that has carried me through life. It was glamorous and warm all at once. I remember sitting next to you on the way to Jamaica, belting "Fly Me to the Moon" and "Bushel and a Peck" gleefully for the whole plane to hear. I remember memorizing the magic flute at the age of 4 and going to the opera with you and seeing the same show over and over and over. I remember you shrieking for us to pull over on the side of the highway so you could buy us a Brett hot dog for yourself. I remember feeding you lobster and seeing little napkins with claws sticking out of your pocketbook. I remember hearing about your childhood crushes and all the handsome men who had vied for your attention. Oma shirt, there are so many knickknacks and stories we've shared that I would love to discuss with you right now. I feel every time I wear an outfit you bought for me or scroll through selfies I made you take of us. I feel them when I open the notebook and find letters upon letters that you have sent to me, all signed Love Oma shirt. I feel you every time I say my middle name, Amy. I hope one day to truly earn your name. I feel so proud to have been yours, to have been loved by you and been so close to you. You flew me to the moon, Oma shirt, with every kiss and hug and pat on the knee. I worshipped you and always will, and I don't know what life means without our secret playdates at fancy restaurants, without the sunglasses and scarves you would immediately give me after I complimented them, without you. You provided a sweetness that can never be replicated for me, and I will try to find pieces of you in everything I do. I know that you are watching over me right now, eating a heavenly lobster, chuckling as I ramble off memories of you, trying in vain to truly capture the essence of our relationship and the love you brought to this world. The lipstick smudges you left on my cheek will remain with me all my life, and I thank you, Oma shirt, for being mine and allowing me to be yours. I love you to the moon and back and 5 times again, a bushel and a peck and a hug around the neck. Sincerely yours, Leah Pants. I'm Talia. I'm Carolyn's other daughter and Leah's younger sister and Oma's granddaughter. Up until the age of 10, I was thoroughly convinced that my grandmother was a celebrity. No one I had ever encountered on or off the screen possessed such confidence, charm, and personal style as Oma did. I appointed myself as her head security detail,
and took it upon myself to push her wheelchair with the same vigor and speed as one ducking the paparazzi and a fleet of starstruck fans might have. Amy Cohen may not have been a celebrity, but she was definitely the main character. No public outing was complete without 1 or 2 or 5 people approaching her to say hi, and ultimately turning to me to say, "You have the most blank grandmother. Wonderful, amazing, one of a kind, special, beautiful." The adjective inserted in that sentence rotated, but the sentiment remained the same. Oma was a beloved presence and figure in her community, and everywhere she went. After my mother, of course, Oma was my biggest role model. I watched her in awe for my entire life, wondering how someone could be so loving, exciting, honest, and joyful, and always manage to do it in the right outfit. More than anything, I was mesmerized by how many lives Oma touched, how many others she served as a role model to, across the spectrum of age, gender, and personality. Oma taught me how to live life with your eyes wide open, always seeking opportunity and adventure. But if you ever had the pleasure of witnessing Oma in a true moment of joy, whether it was feeding her grandchildren goldfish like the seals at the zoo, surrounded by her family in a bustling conversation at the dinner table, or getting that perfect mashed potato to steak ratio in a bite, Oma would tilt her head back and close her eyes. And for a moment, the world would stop turning as I watched the serenity and happiness wash over her. I never asked her what she was thinking about or what she saw. I figured I would understand one day. Oma, I hope that as you closed your eyes for the last time, you saw the people in this room. A room full of daughters, sons, grandchildren, friends, mentees, and above all, people as in awe of you as I always was. I pray that as you close your eyes, you are reunited with the love of your life, Bud Cohen. I pray that you stay close to your family, watching every achievement, failure, and milestone that is yet to come. I pray that you continue to wear your red lipstick and big shades and convince everyone up there that you are a celebrity. I will think about you when I close my eyes and when I experience those future moments of intense joy. You will serve as a light in that darkness, and you will never be forgotten. Thank you.
And finally, among the family speakers, we're going to hear from Evan, who is a nephew, I believe.
Helen Millen. Dander Commander. Davis Mavis. Gailster, Cabelster. Davis Mavis. Carolinus Minus. By the way, I don't know how many bottles God leaves out, but I used all of them. I'll try and make this brief. If I struggle for a minute, stand by me, but my words are brief. Those that I've just mentioned know this about myself and Amy. But to me, Amy was more than Aunt Amesky. She was a guardian angel in the truest sense. One I could talk to, listen to, touch and feel, and hug, and my God, did we laugh. She miraculously seemed to always be there when I needed her. And when I could not come to her and needed her, she always found a way to come to me. We all have so many memories that will make her shine in our hearts for some time. But there is one overarching quality about Amy, above all, that all gathered here will agree with. Amy had an overabundant capacity for love and for caring. And those are two gifts that she showered on us all here. And we are all blessed to have been touched by her love and her caring. I managed to keep in touch with Amy regularly before she died. Thank God I will not have to scream into the phone any longer. Yeah. But again, Amy being Amy, not one time in recent years when we spoke did she not ask me about my wife and my children, Cecilia and Lucas. And when older and more frail, however, she asked the same question 10 times in a conversation. But each time with the same genuine love and concern. Each time. She was one of the rare beings that was truly a giant among us. And may her large shadow blanket us all with her love for years to come.
When I met with the family via Zoom in preparation, among the things we talked about was, and this is something that you all said in different ways and in different words, the just vastness of her generosity, vastness of the generosity of her love, and in material ways and in financial ways, and generous with her time and generous with herself. It reminds me of a comment by the writer Calvin Trillin that I really like. He said, okay, then in that case, yeah, I'm making a mess of my phone. It's most appropriate. He said, "We never know the space that we occupy in other people's lives. We never really know the importance of anything that we say or do. In other people's lives, we make people feel something that is indelible, and they remember it long after we've forgotten. And conversely, you can go the other way as well, other people can never know the impacts that they've had on us, the things that they forgot 15 years ago, but we stick with. And those, I have found over the 20 plus years that I've been in the rabbinate, there's never a shiva. There's never a funeral in which somebody doesn't come up to you and tell you a story about your loved one that they may well have forgotten, 20, 30 years ago, but stuck with you and left its fingerprints on your life. The things that you told me the other night on the telephone or on the Zoom call about the people who remember something from your friends and your childhood and the impact that Amy had on their lives, I think is just incredibly, incredibly rich. That generosity, which showed itself, among other things, in her commitment to tzedakah, to environmental causes, to mental health causes, the Jewish Board of Family and Children's Services. She touched many, many people's lives, and we may not know in our own lives the way we leave our impact on others, and other people may not know the way they have impacted our own lives. But I think we're saying goodbye to somebody from all of the things that you said, and Talia said it with great vividness. Gail said it about the hairdresser. You never quite know just how impactful you have been on somebody's life, and we're saying goodbye to somebody who did leave her fingerprints over a great many lives in a great, in just extraordinary ways with generosity of time and love and resources, and she made the world a richer, sweeter, better place for everybody she touched. there's a really illustrative piece of rabbinic wisdom about this. It says that when somebody dies, somebody's death approaches, they may love any number of things, and actually each of these things applies perhaps to Amy Cohen. They love their family, and they may love their possessions, they may love their wealth, they may love the beautiful things in their lives, and they love their good deeds. And as death approaches, you may gather up your family and say to them, "Save me from this passage." And the people say, "We cannot save you. We cannot drive away the angel of death." And then they say to their mammon, to all of their possessions, to all the material abundance in life, save me from this passage. And they say, we also cannot save you from death. And then they say to their good deeds, save me from this passage. And the good deeds, the ma'asim tovim, the acts of kindness and righteousness that the person has done, they say, well, we can't save you from leaving the world, but we will walk along beside you as you enter the next world. As it says, "V'halach lefanecha tzidkecha kvod Adonai ya'asvecha." Your righteous deeds will walk before you, and God will gather you up in God's embrace. Among the many, many wonderful things that you heard about Amy Cohen, among them are a great many righteous deeds, and we hope and pray and feel confident that they will walk beside her as she makes the passage from this world to the next world. As we mentioned, music was just incredibly important to her, and so Jerry, what are you going to do next in Amy's memory?
More Bach.
More Bach, okay.
This is a continuation of the same piece. It's a little bit more contemplative in mood. Happens.
Thank you. You had her with you for so many years. She supported you, she loved you, she cared for you. And now you're going to have to do those things for each other in her absence. All that she was for you, you'll have to be those things for each other. We always say about somebody who is very generous that they are a philanthropist. And she was a philanthropist in the conventional sense of the term, but I would like to urge you to be a philanthropist in the greatest sense of the term, somebody who loves humanity, loves people. So may you always keep the memory of Amy alive in your lives by being true philanthropists, generous with love, with time, with resources, and with care. May her memory be a blessing. We all have a mitzvah. Some of us will do it in practical ways. We have the mitzvah of levayat hamet, walking beside somebody, accompanying somebody in their last passage on earth. Literally, it refers to the funeral cortege, going to the cemetery and participating in the burial. Some of us will do that. Even if you can't do that, I don't know if we can arrange. In the city, we usually walk alongside the hearse. I'm not sure if we can do it here in Westchester in the same way. But even if you can't either go to the cemetery or walk alongside the hearse on its way to the cemetery for a number of paces, I invite you to mentally, as much as possible, fulfill the mitzvah of levayat hamet and consider yourself, walk behind the hearse as it leaves perhaps, consider yourself stretching out, making last a little bit longer the time that you can accompany Amy through her journey in life. Think of all the places she accompanied you on your journey through life, and take those last few steps as long as you can beside her on this earth. Invite everyone to rise, and I'll say the memorial prayer, after which we'll follow the coffin out. Yes.
Okay, sorry, one last announcement. For anyone who's not going to the burial at Kensico Cemetery, we are having a reception at Beach Point Club at 4:30 this afternoon, and anyone who's here is welcome. We'd love you to attend, so thank you.
מלא רחמים, שוכן במרומים, המצא מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה, במעלות קדושים וטהרים, כי זוהר הרקיע מזהירים לנשמת אהובה בת שמעון והלן, שהלכה לעולמה בגן עדן תהא מנוחתה, ענה בעל הרחמים, הסתיריה בסתר כנפיך לעולמים, וצרו בצורה חיים את נשמתה, Adonai hu nachalata v'tanuach al mishkava b'shalom. Nomar amen. God full of mercy, who dwells on high, grant perfect rest in your presence among all the holy and the pure, shining with the radiance of heaven, to the soul of Amy Cohen, who has gone towards eternity. May her rest be in the Garden of Eden. Master of mercy, embrace her, wrap her up in your robes, and bind this one mortal life to the bond of infinite and immortal life. May God be her portion, and may she rest in peace. Amen. יושב בסתר עליון, בצר שדי עונן, אומר לאדוני, מחסי מצודתי, אלוהי הבטח בו, כי הוא יצילך מפח יכוש מדבר אבות, בעברתו יחסך לך, ותחת כנפיו תצא צילה וסוחר עמתה, לא צילה מפחד לילה, מחץ יהוד יומם,